to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. And it's purely formal, but I'll do roll call. Wayne Grusling.
Present.
Present. Greg Hilbert.
I'm here.
Jamie Bowman.
Here.
And Frank Myers is absent. Ordinarily, at this point, the chair would ask me to introduce evidence, and we do that so that there's a record of what you all are relying on based on the staff reports and the information that we have. And so I will offer it into evidence, and if someone could make a motion to approve it, and then a second to approve it, and then vote, that would be great. So I'll offer in evidence the design guidelines for the St. Genevieve National Register Historic District, the municipal code of the city of St. Genevieve, and the staff reports and accompanying materials that I sent you in the mail. So I would ask.
Make a motion that the design guidelines, the municipal code, and the staff reports be offered for consideration.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay. I'd like to introduce to whoever's watching out there that we have a new commission, and there are right now 4 members. Mr. Frank Myers is not available tonight, but we have Mr. Wayne Grusling and Mr. Greg Hilbert, Ms. Jamie Bowman, Frank Myers, and our aldermanic liaison, Teddy Ross. Welcome. I wanted to provide you with, I provided you with a copy of the ordinance, which is fairly complicated as if you even tackled looking at it. But I wanted to go through that with you so that you were aware of what kinds of things will come to you and what kinds of things won't, versus what happened in the old landmarks process. Essentially, if you are there is a St. Genevieve Landmarks Register, and that has typically the oldest structures in town on it. And those are things, ones that have been designated and are on our own register. There's also the National Register Historic District, which is mainly in the downtown area. I think there might even be a map of it in your design guidelines. It's the smaller of the two. The entire town was actually named a national landmark, historic landmark by the Secretary of Interior, and that encompassed the entire town. But the entire town is not subject to review for every structure within it. There are 8 landmarks outside of the National Register Historic District that are still within this larger national landmark, and those 8 structures are subject to review, including any structures that are within 185 feet of those. Every structure within the National Register District, which is what this talks about, is subject to review depending on what the project is that's coming forward. And what we look at is alterations, construction, new and additions, anytime there's a removal of any piece or the entirety of a building, and demolition. If there is going to be just simple maintenance and repair, that's where the devil is in the details in the ordinance. If there is ordinary maintenance and repair, that's ordinarily not subject to review, except in certain circumstances. If you are replacing your original materials on your house with something other than what was there, then it's subject to review. If you're changing the materials from what's existing on your house, so say for example, someone has currently a contributing house within the National Register District, and they have vinyl windows on their house right now because they changed them out 20 years ago or whatever before there was a process here. And if they want to just replace them with the same materials, they can do that. They'll come in, I'll fill out a form, and they'll be exempt from review because we can't require them to go back to the original. So when it comes to landmarks, even if they are repairing something in kind, taking a wood back to wood, or, say they're changing the entirety of a roof, and it's a landmark on our St. Genevieve register, then it would still come back to us if it's more than 30% of the component, so that we can review big items and not have a situation where people think it's ordinary repair, and here it is, it's really a change, even if it does look like a repair. There are, in your binder, I gave you a brochure that kind of lays this out step by step, and the idea of the ordinance was to basically take and make the process a little bit simpler for folks who are doing ordinary maintenance and repair, who were just replacing in kind whatever they had or original materials. And for those projects that were not a part of a contributing structure, or is outside the National Register District, really won't get reviewed by the commission any longer. And that will make it easier for a lot of folks who are doing some basic things. Things that Jamie, as a former landmark member, that we would see stuff and it would just be like, why are we reviewing this type of thing? And so now we're really going to focus on the very important structures, and making sure that things are done to those that meet the guidelines. The design guidelines are a separate document from the ordinance, and there are some references to the Landmarks Commission. Obviously, those won't apply any longer. So what you'll want to do is start really from Chapter 2 on, to really understand the guidelines. I would say that we should have a mini retreat, and we'll talk about that after we get through to the new business, the administration of the report, but we'll get to that as how you will go through those and understand those. It's a little bit confusing when you first look at them, because it seems a little bit repetitive, but there is logic to it, and so I think we ought to have a little mini retreat so we can go through them together and really start to understand what the point of them are and what's going on with those. So, without further ado, I would like to move into new business, if that's okay. I realize that you guys just kind of here, so my staff reports are a little bit longer than they usually would be. I wanted to give you an idea of the kinds of things that you should be looking at in terms of the various guidelines and how you would judge a particular project based upon those guidelines. It's not always cut and dry. Anyway, that you have a staff report in front of you, and I hope you had a chance to look at it. The first project, which we don't have the owner here because it's a little bit complicated. You all may be aware of Candle Corner and the ammonia building that sits right next door. Okay. There was problems with the ammonia building it appeared to be roof leaks that were occurring in that building that were coming into the Candle Corner building. And the trustee for the trust that owns the ammonia building now has hired a contractor to help resolve those issues, and one of the issues was the addition off the back of the ammonia building. The addition appeared to be separate from the addition on the Candle Corner addition, which is the subject of this certificate of appropriateness. Unbeknownst to anyone, because of the amount of stuff that was in the ammonia building addition, we didn't really know whether there was a partition wall or whether there was an exterior wall separating the two additions. And until they removed the ammonia building addition, we really had no idea, and there was no way for us to get in there and really look. So they took that down, and you can see from the pictures what was left, which is essentially a partition wall with some insulation. I don't know if there was ever an exterior wall actually there. in looking at it, it didn't appear to be the case, but when you look at aerial photographs, they're together, there's no way for us to know. The owner of the Monia building has recently died, so we couldn't ask him. The Candle Corner folks didn't really know. The brick building you see on page 2 there on the right is actually a separate structure. That's not like a brick structure there that belongs to either of these two buildings, so I don't want you to be confused by that. So when they took it down, the Monia building trustee graciously agreed to take it down and actually repair the wall between the two buildings and face it. They put insulation, and you can see plastic is there, and they started to, but didn't, almost put up this gray vinyl siding along it, and then they were gonna deal with the guttering that was on the building and any kind of flashing. Now, ordinarily, on a historic structure like this, we might view this as not appropriate, and certainly that is your prerogative. As you can see from the various descriptions of the design guidelines, there's not really a clear-cut answer to this, other than when there is an addition, it should be differentiated from the original main building. The rear of the building is somewhat different than the streetscape of the building. And I think in this circumstance, I believe it is appropriate to go ahead and approve this siding in this circumstance. But that is completely up to you. And I don't know if anybody drove by this particular building, but you virtually cannot see this from any direction. You have to go behind the Ice House building and kind of drive up in there and really have to go out of your way. I think the only people that might be able to see it is out the Herald windows, and the Herald has basically aluminum gray siding on it as well. So I don't think that it's unusual. It's a small wall. It would make the area protected, and the trustee for the trust for the Candle Corner building is asking that you approve this. I think if this is not approved, I'm not sure where we would end up at this point, but this is where we are today. So I'll leave it to you all to discuss or talk about.
I have no problems with it.
My only question is whenever I drove by, there's another addition onto it, and it had white siding?
The Candle Corner,
Yeah.
the white siding is on the second floor. Right.
And I was just wondering why it wouldn't go or match since it was on the same building.
All I would say about that is that it's the Monia building contractors who actually are doing the job, and they just picked this because the Herald building was gray. And they didn't really think about it. They actually purchased most of the siding before they even realized that they needed to talk to us about that first. So I think they only, and Mrs. Paul, and we don't really govern color, so I'm not sure that Mrs. Pauley is fine with this. And so I would say color is,
Okay, well, that's my only question, because the other vinyl on the building was that. But otherwise, it needs to be done, and it can't be seen, so.
I would say, since we don't know if it was ever an exterior wall, basically look at it as new construction. And it says here, lap siding is traditional, and you can use synthetic siding in place of traditional wood. So as long as it follows those guidelines, I don't see a problem.
So I make a motion to approve the vinyl siding on the exterior wall of the Candle Corner.
is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, well, that was easy.
The only stipulation shows a 4 to 5 inch lap. I guess, I don't know how particular that needs to be.
Well, it's not really lap siding,
Right.
so I don't know how to make it 4 to 5.
Nobody else see it.
I don't think I have a
tape measure.
That's it. There was something. Okay, great. We'll move on to the next item, 504 Memorial Drive. And I believe the applicant is here. If you would like to say hello and tell us your name and what you'd like to do.
Please go up there. So you can follow the camera.
Okay, I'm Linda Trimmer, and half of your commission already knows that I am a huge dog person. So we rescued a puppy that has become a pony and a jumping one. And he has many times jumped our fence, and so I'm worried about his safety and that of everyone else in the neighborhood, including all the little Shih Tzus that he's friends with. So we would like to put up a fence to keep him in.
The black and white copies may not be too good. Here's color, and you can see the house a little bit better and the fencing that's there. I think that might be helpful to you. I apologize. We've tried to keep the cost down by not making color unless absolutely necessary. You have any questions, Ms. Turner?
How tall is your current fence?
4-foot chain link. It's been there since before we moved in, so over 22 years, I'd say.
The reason why this particular project is before you, and you'll get familiar with it as we go on, her house is a contributing resource within the National Register District, and because she's replacing a chain link with a wood fence, it's a different material altogether, and a different height.
Wood is likely more traditional anyway. Though.
Well, I know, it's very, very difficult to say, and we don't know that there was any evidence of a fence before, and you can see in the pictures, there's not necessarily a lot of fences in that area to go by, but certainly we have, the Landmarks Commission has approved privacy fences in the rear in the past, and I think the guidelines say it's okay for the rear, certainly.
I make a motion to approve the 6-foot privacy fence around the Trimmer's property.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Okay. I assume you guys also say yay. That was easy.
It was,
Thank you.
My dog thinks.
I was a little Shih Tzu.
Yes, right.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda, as I had mentioned earlier, there are some projects that now fall under administrative review, and I wanted to provide you with a list of those when those occur, and I gave you sort of a mini report that was in your packet. And it basically tells you kind of what our thought process was in approving the project administratively versus bringing it to you. There may be circumstances where I don't know the answer, and so even if it looks like it belongs under my heading, I'll bring it to you anyway, or if I think it's something that might be controversial, I will bring it to you. I have the option always to bring you any item that I'm, for any reason for that matter. So this particular item was, there's a house at 25 North 2nd, and there are concrete stairs there, and they are going to put the original materials back, which would be wood. And
Without removing the concrete.
without moving the concrete. And the concrete's clearly not original.
Is that between Merchant and Jefferson?
Yes.
Were they
Yes, it's
just
right
putting
next door to,
Wood on the concrete?
yeah. The problem is that one of the steps is abnormally tall, and she is going to be having a studio where people can come and go, and she's nervous about that. There's no hand railing, or there's kind of one, but it's not really very safe. And so we felt like because they were returning the steps to the wood, that would be something that could be reviewed administratively, and so we've done that. when people come in, and I've provided this to you as well, I have a little form that I kind of go through the matrix of how I got to the decision to review it or not review it. And those forms I put in your file as well. I don't know that I put the form to this one on there, but this is the house. And this is basically kind of the steps, and they were gonna replicate the nice banister and down the steps. So I think it'll be nice. We'll have to make sure that this piece has something grippable. Can't be that wide once they add that, but we'll deal with that from a permitting standpoint.
Okay, so is that the house on 4th Street?
No, this
Yeah.
house is actually on 4th Street, yes.
Yeah.
Suzanne,
Did I say 2nd Street? I'm sorry, it should be
Yeah.
4th
Oh.
Street. Yeah.
Okay, well, this said 2nd Street, and that's why I couldn't.
yeah.
place
I
it.
apologize about that. So what I did was when I provided this, I put down here comments. And you don't have to do it here clearly, but I would love to have, if you have your own personal comments, whether this should or should not have gone to us and whether we reached the right decision, so that I start to get a feel for what is appropriate for the administrator versus for you all. And so feel free to make notes, give them to me, I encourage it. So just wanted you to see that, and how I was gonna handle that each time there was an administrative review of a project. I think that's consistent with, and I think Alderman Ross would agree with, keeping everybody informed about what I'm reviewing. And Martin is also signing off on these things, so there is 2 people that are looking at it under the guidelines, so. Okay. So for the future of this commission, as Jamie will tell you and Alderman Ross will tell you, is that usually we meet once a month. I think but it's a minimum of once quarterly. And it really is driven by whether or not we have applications. And typically, we do have applications almost every month. It's a rare occasion that we don't. And in the past, we have met on the 3rd Monday of the month. And I would like to continue that if possible. I think it won't conflict then with the downtown renewal folks. And it gives me time between board meeting weeks to meet. Tonight was kind of unusual because we had these people waiting for a decision, and I wanted to get to it as quick as we could. So I don't know if the 3rd Monday works for you all. That would ordinarily have been next week. But I don't know what your all schedules look like, and that's an open night.
Would they always be around 7?
Yeah, unless you guys want to meet earlier, and we can meet earlier. There's no requirement that we meet at 7 o'clock. Any thoughts? You guys can be really quiet.
7 or later is better for me.
It's fine with me.
Okay, third Monday's still good? Okay, great.
So the next one's 5 weeks from now. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Because
April 20th.
what we'll do is we'll give a deadline for commission submissions the week before, so that I have plenty of time to be able to write you all a staff report and get it to you, usually the Thursday before. Okay. And then, I think we ought to think about, and this is more or less up to you all, is to have a little mini, what I call a mini retreat, to go through the list of actually your duties. The duties aren't just looking at certificates of appropriateness applications. It's more than that. It's about potentially adding structures to the landmark register, potentially adding to our, like the National Landmark District doesn't have any buildings designated in it. That could be something that could be done or pushed forward by this board. You could also be looking at design guidelines and saying, this is not really working for us, this particular category, and we'd like to see maybe some changes. I wouldn't expect that it would take very long if everybody took the time to really go through the guidelines ahead of time, and then we could go through them and talk about them and talk about maybe examples and see, what works and what doesn't. It seems like when we had the commission before, people kind of just started to not look at those very closely. And I think some people think that they're not that clear. I think they're pretty clear for the most part.
Well, the problem is they're abstract. I've read it a number of times, and it wasn't until I had to write staff reports that I kind of really came to grips with what it was saying, because you can just read it.
Right.
And you don't have any context for it. So if you have a exercise, just reading it isn't enough, because it doesn't necessarily stimulate questions or a thought process that's critical in terms of, Jamie has some experience with it, so she can be more critical, but I think the burden was going to be on whoever leads this to as you review it, bring some practical applications up so that you can consider, this is what I would have to do because this guideline says this is how we should handle these situations.
I also think maybe during that process, I could have like even look at all of our past, well, not all of them, but a lot of our past applications to see what kind of projects typically come before you. I mean, we see a lot of siding, we see a lot of windows, we see a lot of porches, right? I mean, it's rare that we see big, project. I mean, we had the Bolduc roof. That was kind of a big one, and that was actually very complicated.
Roger and Audubon.
Yeah, I mean, so, I think there may be times when we're really, it may be very difficult, but I think for the most part, we could go through them and talk about how we think we might handle that. And then you'll have, I think, a better understanding. It's always easier when you can apply it to something. I completely agree with you on that. Is there a good day that works? I mean, would you like to meet just in an evening again on a night, and we just spend a good hour going through and talking about different examples? I mean, you saw some examples tonight, but the siding thing was, that was very unusual, I think. But the fence was fairly typical.
I'm fine with that.
Okay. Does any night of the week work better for any of you all than others?
Pretty much any time.
Okay.
It's just difficult for me. I mean, I can't really take off days.
Right.
You know.
So a night, I guess, if there's not a whole lot on Monday nights are generally a good night. What nights do you meet with your downtown renewal group?
Tonight. Right now.
I'm working on getting you out of here as quick as I can.
Gee whiz, if I miss it.
Yeah. No, you can't miss it. Well, what I'd like to do is wait until, see kind of what Frank's situation is and see when he might be able to meet, because I think we all benefit greatly from his experience, and
He just knows so much.
He just knows so much and has done a number of buildings, and so,
Well, the only time that I feel like the decisions ever became difficult is whenever there are houses around those houses that have already had changes to them.
It is hard.
And, I mean, I try to, the staff reports, they're always correct. I mean, I don't even have to look through the book anymore. They've been correct ever since I've been on here, but you have to weigh that, and that's what's so hard.
Oh, I'm about to give it a speak. I'm going into lecture mode. I can feel it coming on.
Sweet.
The staff, the role of staff is to do a technical review
Yeah.
of the application. And if that's all that was needed, there would be no reason to have a landmarks commission. So it's I think, obligation of the landmarks commission is to consider the technical report, hear the evidence that is provided, and make a decision that you think makes sense in the context of the whole, because you're the representatives of the citizens of St. Genevieve, not Petrie.
Yeah, and I promise I try to be.
And so you should never feel to my way of thinking, within the bounds of the law and good public policy, you should never feel badly about coming to a decision that's different from the staff
And it's
recommendation.
not personal to me, so never feel like you're hurting my feelings at all.
So your effort to kind of make things work, I think, is why you're here. And it's what you should be doing.
One of the things that I observed, and I, unfortunately, I do like to talk, so I apologize about that. But one of the things that I observed in the short months that I've been here is that in the past, people have come forward, they get a copy of my staff report and it says denied. And they're like, why am I denied? And it's like, no. You haven't been denied. And they don't even understand the process, much less what they were supposed to be thinking about in doing their project. They don't even know that they're being judged by an entire binder that has very specific information in it, or kind of what's going on in the larger sense. And so I would recommend, this is just I think it might go over better and be a better dialogue, is if during a meeting, and we can talk about this at the retreat, it may be too much tonight, but I would say, let me go through the staff report and explain what the project is and kind of what the guidelines say. That way, you don't have to be the bad guys and telling them what the design guidelines say. You know, they've heard it from me, they can be mad at me. And then you guys can talk about it and ask them questions or whatever, but now they have a context, and they're not just mad because you're saying no, or you're saying, why don't you do wood instead? They have a context for it. I'm trying to talk to people every time they come in with an application. This is what our guidelines say, this is kind of the point of the whole exercise. It's not just for our health. We're not just a bunch of power-grabbing, bureaucrats here. There's a reason for this, and here's the reason, and go through the guidelines with them. That doesn't always happen, but I try to make it happen on every application. But I feel like sometimes they come in and they don't even know what standard they're being judged by. Like they don't even know what the guidelines say and what the point of the whole exercise is. And so I think if I can take that on for each project, then you guys can debate it after the technical stuff is out of the way. Does that make sense? You're looking at me with.
Does St. Genevieve have a website that they could put these guidelines on for the general public?
Nobody ever looks at it.
Oh, okay. You think
I
as
know
a
it's-
contractor that maybe they would look at it?
Yeah. I have a box
There's
of
a
copies.
DVD, there's copies.
Is
there's
there?
Yeah,
books.
yeah. And I'm happy to give them away. I mean, I have a box of them sitting by my office, so I'm, happy to give them away. And,
Again, I will say,
huh?
a citizen could sit down and read that.
Yeah.
It would be like, that doesn't mean anything.
Right.
You didn't include the window.
I had already sent out everything and had the packet already done, so I apologize. We had one more item that came up, and I'll bring it up again, which was
Joan Rose.
vinyl windows for vinyl windows, basically, is what she wanted to switch out her vinyl windows and put in new ones. She had never had new windows. She didn't know what the old ones used to look like. We're historic preservation, not historic restoration. So we have to be cognizant of that. And so that was just passed on. It's also an item that doesn't get permitted, so that would not flow through you ordinarily. Okay, so I'll get with you guys. Do you all check your email regularly? Do you check your email regularly? Okay. Because I know you guys do. So I will get you a date or a couple of dates. One of the things that we have to do to become a certified local government is all of us have to be trained periodically. And I gave to you guys a form that shows the next certified local government forums that will be held in Jefferson City on April 17th. It's not a requirement that you go. You only have to have one training opportunity per year, and that can come in a variety of ways.
It can be your
session. Yeah, it could be our session, literally our session. It could be you attending How to Take a Barn Down by Greg Hilbert. I mean, it has to be preservation related. And we just report that at the end of the year, and then everything is fine. The other thing that I provided to you, Rain had already filled this out, which is they always require basically a volunteer profile, and Wayne had filled this out already, so we don't need one from you, Wayne. But your expression of interest, why you wanted to be on the commission, so that it's clear that we have people that are interested. I don't know why you would apply to be on it and not be interested, but nevertheless.
Well, because sometimes you don't apply, you get volunteered.
You get volunteered.
Drug,
I
kicking
think
and
that was
screaming.
pretty much how I handled it. I think Wayne was the only one that actually came in and volunteered. God love him.
I just was wondering why nobody else is here.
Yeah. Well, I think the idea,
You got any ideas about it?
yeah, I mean, I think the idea was to mix it up and, kind of revive things and get people passionate again and make sure we have one or two professionals that know, like, how does a building come down? How does a building work? That sometimes is where we get stuck, in my view. We don't necessarily know why you do this or that. And so I think it will be helpful to have you on board, Greg, and hopefully we'll get an architect on board too. That's our goal. So that's about it. So I need your statements of interest whenever you get a chance.
Right here.
Yeah. Oh, you filled it out already?
Mhm.
Excellent. Great.
I'll email mine this evening.
Okay, that's fine. Take your time. Well, any public comments?
No.
Anything else? Anything you want to add? Guys are so
So sometime before our next meeting in 5 weeks, we'll have a
We'll
session
try to
here.
get together, yeah. Hopefully
Okay.
it won't be more than an hour or so to go through and get you all familiar with. In the ordinance, I'm not sure if anybody really read it, but your duties are listed there. It's a long list. Notice I didn't send it to you before I asked you to be on it. But I would look at those, because I think it's important for you to see kind of the other things that you're supposed to do besides saying, oh, the fence is okay, or whatever. I think it would be really helpful. It's like page 7 and 8 of your ordinance. So, make sense? I'm always here for questions, if you have questions, always. You can call me on my cell phone if you want.
I do have one comment. This is really my first meeting with the new commission and my last meeting. So there will be a new person taking over for the automatic representative. So that'll be, I would say, in April, there should be a new person.
Well, the elections
On the 7th, I think.
When do they get sworn in?
said the night they're elected.
Well, 2 nights left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
You were
then they have to
like
appoint someone.
instrumental in getting this new ordinance done, and then, have had a great voice and speaking for a lot of folks, and so I personally want to thank you.
Well, thank you.
Been enjoying
It's been
working
quite an
with you.
experience, and I'll tell you what, it's just amazing that the quality and the good people that go on these committees. Everybody tries their best and do a really good job. So, I appreciate that.
Couldn't do it without them.
Yeah.
And I wanted to say something about Petrie. First of all, I do not have your cell phone number, but second.
I'm going to get that to you.
I think that just coming in the door, that I have heard comments from citizens coming in that it's just, I think you must just explain it a little bit differently. And I appreciate that, because it makes it easier than whenever.
I think she explains it.
Well, thanks, Martin.
Well, but somehow she makes them be like,
I'm
oh.
not sure explanations were offered. Brenda had handouts that she would hand out. I don't know how well she.
Well, I appreciate that. I can tell that you take the time and walk them through it and make them understand what the process is. And you can tell even when people go up to the podium or whatever, and that's been helpful. And it's just been a few months. I mean,
Well, I like to, I mean, I have always been preservation-minded, but I get kind of the other side of things, and I think if you're passionate about it, it can make other people kind of understand it a little better too, and I really don't try to force my opinion on them, other than to say, there's a reason for this, and it's kind of a cool reason, and so I get excited about it, a cool reason.
Be careful,
That's all.
sometimes passion scares people.
I know it does, I know it does. Okay. Motion to adjourn from someone?
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
You get to go to another.
So you'll let us know after you talk with Frank?
I will
Next
let
meeting.
you
Okay.
know. I would guess